Okay. When you hear sharp drop in inflation, sharp drop, it looks like it was going, and then there was just whatever that means. And I have also seen the president, talk about that inflation. Don't worry about the inflation figures. We are bringing it down. The audacity sometimes.
What was that, his expression again?
Okay.
All right.
In other words,
as
that meme says, do like this. Do like this.
Drink cold water and...
Sometimes cold water. Anyway, let's get into the conversation this morning. So, according to the National Bureau of Statistics, Nigeria's headline inflation has dropped to 24.48% year-on-year in January 2025.
Or has it really dropped?
This is a sharp decline from the 34.80% headline inflation recorded in December 2024. So, Alero is asking, has it really dropped? Let's find out. We have two gentlemen, but we'll begin with one of them who's already joined us, Dr. Olugbenga Adeoye, a chartered accountant and lawyer. We also have Professor Ademola Rabiu with us. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Good morning, sir.
Okay. Let me begin with you, Dr. Adeoye. Alero is asking, let me ask Alero's question. The National Bureau of Statistics officially says that the inflation figures has dropped. So Alero is asking, has it really dropped?
I don't feel it in the market, Dr. Adeoye. Prices are still high in the market.
When I saw 24.48%, I was surprised where this figure is coming from. Because when you say there is a drop in inflation, what you are practically saying is that the things that we used to buy for 100 naira that are now turned to 300 naira. You are saying that it has now become 124,000 naira. I think there is a problem with this. I do not think that this figure is correct. I don't know where they got this data from. Because if you go to the market, you still find things as expensive as they used to be in the past.
All right, let me ask Professor Rabiu the same question.
I beg your pardon. So, Dr. Adeoye, in other words, inflation has not dropped.
Maybe inflation dropped marginally, but not significantly. Because when you talk of drop, and somebody say, oh, the inflation is now at 24.48%, you then think that you must compare where you are now to where you were coming from. That's the best way to do your analysis. So if I was buying something for 100 naira before, and that item now suddenly become 500 or 400 naira, which is the real situation in the country. And that's been so because every item sympathizes with the fluctuation in the exchange rate. As long as you still have naira, dollar exchanging for dollar at 1,600, there are certain products that will remain where they were before. And so if you say there is a drop, maybe insignificant drop, that people may not be able to feel the impact in the economy.
Okay. Professor Rabiu, do you agree?
And partially. When you talk about price or drop in inflation, we have to look across the board. So we can't just isolate one. Look at food price, for instance. I mean, I've been in Nigeria now for the past 4 months because I lecture in South Africa. I bought a measure of beans for, I think, 4,000 naira. It's now 2,400. So the price of food produces has fallen significantly by as much as 50%. So I don't agree with that. Well, if you look at cement and some things, it has increased, yes. But across the board, there has been a bigger drop in prices of goods and services across the country. Well, so we have to look at it totality.
comparatively, as Alero said, okay, maybe take it this way. Sometimes the challenge is not whether or not the numbers are coming down. Sometimes it's whether or not, Professor Rabiu, they are reflecting on the spending power or capacity of Nigerians in most cases. So one example, just a second, sir. So maybe you can be able to answer that question in context. So as Alero said earlier, our producer was talking to us and gave the example of a particular product, a raw material of sorts, that has come down significantly from like 80,000 thereabout to about 50,000 naira. But the price of the product is still pretty much the same. So it's not reflected in what Nigerians are buying. So where do we place that? Do we say inflation has reduced, but it hasn't reflected in the market prices? How do Nigerians understand that?
That's a very good question. In fact, what you just said now, there was a discourse, not a debate. I don't like the word debate. Discourse. We have this think tank for Asiwaju, PBAT, academics and professionals. And somebody raised the issue of the price of cement. And the professor said, why is it going up? And another professor responded that the cost of production has gone up. And I smiled. So I asked a question. Look at the profit before tax for these industries. Has it gone up for them? If it has increases, so somehow they've managed to rein in the cost of production to get it in, because that's what comes to price. So the big issue, like you are saying, in terms of development is, as these price reductions tells in the quality of life for Nigerians and the services being produced? Yes and no. But the question is why? Just look at our bank's PBT. Look at these cement companies, profit before tax as well. It has increased. So the question I won't answer that question, I don't want to answer it, is that why is it that the significant reduction in prices and costs is not reflecting in prices? No, because the companies are making more profit, and profit is simply your revenue minus your cost of production. So the argument of increase in cost of production does not really tell the whole story. So probably we'll come to that soon, maybe, in this program or later on. Now, when we talk about deregulations, we talk about market forces dynamics. Where actually is that happening? I will really address our listeners to go and look at the 8 years tenure of Barack Obama. America is the foremost capitalist country in the world. But he said capitalism without some level of regulation is a disaster. I mean, I'm very close to the economic advisors of the president, and we're talking, and I know the effort being put in place. But I'm not really satisfied today with the level of regulations.
Well, Prof, just 1 second. I will take it. I want to take this to Dr. Ade, because on the one hand, there's this proverb in southwest Nigeria that no one can consume almost in a pot of soup. I almost killed that bush meat. You can't find it in the pot of soup. So really, I mean, there's nothing to eat. So going back to that same question, Dr. Ade, and that one is for you. So on the one hand, certain prices come down, and other prices of that same particular product remains the same, but the total product price is not reduced. The example of flour and bread that Alero gave earlier, what do you make of it?
Well, Dr. Rabiu was talking about the profit after tax or net profit. I'm an accountant, and you know that there are so many factors that affect your cost of production, not just a single item. I just checked the last invoice in my office now, and I found diesel is 1,120 a liter here, PMS 940 naira. I think this is a general price in the public. And so if you look at manufacturers, you don't just carry the blame onto them. If there is no power supply from the grid to power the factory, it means they will look for other alternatives to ensure they have energy. And so diesel is one of them. So if you look at 1 million liters of diesel at 1,120 naira, you know that's what that results into.
Yeah.
So there are other factors. Transportation also is also a factor. Remember that the spare parts that you use regularly, like brake pads and so on, to fix the commercial vehicles, they are import dependent. Exchange rate is hovering around 1,600, 1,570, 1,580. I tell you, if by any miraculous, policy, we're able to do something about our exchange rate, it's going to affect almost everything. Almost everything. Because when you look at even the farmers.
Can I jump in? Can I quickly just ask you a question before you go further?
Go ahead, Doctor.
Diesel has actually gone. The price of diesel has actually gone down because it has been regulated for more than 2 years now. And as my brother is saying, I'm a cost engineer in any case, so I can talk about cost of production. All these costs you are mentioning would have been aggregated before you calculate your PBT or P after tax. So it's not a question of cost of production.
Prof, just 1 second. The reason, just 1 second, Dr. Adeoye, so that we put it in context. Prof, I do understand the take, but Dr. Adeoye is the one answering that question, and one of the reasons he's here is because he's a businessman, and so it's just perhaps to put some context into all of the theories that we have on our hands. So please let him learn, and then you can respond to some of those issues. Please go ahead, Dr. Adeoye.
Okay, so what I was saying is something very simple, that what manufacturers, what they do is to pass all their cost to the consumer. Determination of price in cost accounting, when you get to your break-even point, then you begin to determine what are you going to put as markup or margin on your sales. So we cannot conclude that because price of X has come down is going to result in total drop in how they fix prices. I practice as an accountant, and most of the companies' financials that we have looked into for 2024, you see increase in turnover, heavy turnover, like double. But in actual fact, it's not as if their capacity has doubled, actually. You see somebody that has done, say, 50 billion turnover in 2023, doing 100 and something billion turnover in 2024. It does not imply that that company is better off in 2024. In fact, some say they are better off in the 2023. But of course, for every policy of government, it takes time because of gestation period. So we are trying to achieve a free market, liberalizing everything, making sure that market forces determine prices. However, the government must consider the poor, because it will get to certain point that the poor will not be able to afford certain items. And that's where I always talk about public goods. If you want the people to enjoy the policy, public goods must be in place. Rail system, we must give it attention. Public transportation, we will give it attention. Bulk purchase system must be adopted by all the state governments such that you get quantity discount, and then people come to get this. I don't know why the bulk purchase system is no longer working in many states. I don't know. When we were growing up, these are the things we know about. So if you are getting kerosene outside there for, say, 20 naira, if you go to the bulk purchase department, you are likely to get it for 12 or 15. So the government have a role to play. Remember, even the government at a time in Lagos and other parts of Nigeria told civil servants not to come to work every day. Why? It means they know that their salary will not take them to work every day. So we need to be sincere with ourselves. And like I used to tell people, Mr. President is aware of the situation. Let nobody say things that the president is not saying. The president is a grassroots man. He's interested in the welfare of the people. And I can tell you, he's thinking about it every day. What we should do is to make suggestions to government and say, look, can you do something about this?
Unfortunately,
and if you ask any economist, they will tell you exchange rate is a factor in every pricing you see from the manufacturers.
Professor, all this is arising from the rebasing of the inflation. Well, I don't even know what to call it anymore. We've heard it called all kinds of things, but I will stick with rebasing of the inflation rate, which they say dropped from 34.8 to 24.4. But what is the benefit of this rebasing, since we're not feeling it so much as common people in Nigeria?
You know, that's a good question. When you say you are rebasing the GDP, all they are doing is to change the base year. Like, for instance, the last time we did it in 2014, we used 2010 data. So the effort now is to rebase it and using 2019 data. To be honest with you, people call it different names to factor in inflation, to account for price changes and everything. But the question I want to ask is, and I want to put it back to you, is that if we rebase our GDP to 2019, before the first subsidy was removed, how will we talk about the reality of 2024? So in essence, to me, it's more symbolic than being a real thing in macroeconomics perspective. It's probably one is to try to bring in more foreign investors to assure them that actually we're having growth in the economy. And also, before I forget, it's very important, is that some new sector of the economy has performed wonderfully well and might not have been included or not at the level it should have been done in 2014 and want to be done now. For instance, look at our creative economy, the arts, industrial music, entertainment, the 30 December, for instance. So those have not been factored, it will be factored in. But so at the end of the day, what will it be? Nigeria will be the highest GDP in Africa. It has grown by so and so. But will it tell the whole story about the quality of life of Nigerians? Unfortunately, no. And should it be used by the government as a hard data to make more economic policies? I would suggest that we should be very careful in that regard. So it's more symbolic and it's actually external oriented, that to assure foreign investors that things are happening. But then, before we said, oh, Nigeria is here, South Africa, the foremost economy in Africa, also did their last one, rebased to 2016. So it's not a bad thing. But it should be done in our own case and with the level of changes we're having. Revolutionary change we have in Nigeria every 3 to 5 years. So if you do it now, I would only suggest that by the end of 2026 or 2027, we should actually do a rebase. First property removal.
Perhaps one of
So, Professor, so if I tell myself that the inflation rate in my country is still 34%, I won't be wrong. I won't be absolutely wrong, will I?
See, it depends on what you mean by inflation rate. Remember that when you said inflation rate is 34%, compared to last year. Sometimes some countries do it every six months. So you are right. That figure, like Dr. Adi said, I have no indication to question it, but from the real market, from the prices, I would not agree 100% with it.
As far as the Nigerian is concerned, if bread that was supposed to be 1,000 naira is now 1,900, inflation is more than 34.8%. However, Dr. Adeoye,
bread is 2,200.
Aha. Dr. Adeoye, Festus Akimboyewa has this for you. It says, is inflation not the rate at which prices rise? If that's the case, the new inflation rate may be accurate. How do you respond?
So, like I said, when you talk of rate, you are talking of a base. So, if you are comparing 2025 with 2024, yes, you are okay. The question remains that 2024, is it a good year in pricing? The answer is no. Therefore, the little drop that you find in rate between 2024 and 2025, which is 18 February or 15 February of this year, is something very marginal. Now, what we're saying is that, yes, there is a drop in that rate. And because you are comparing, let me say, you are comparing half a dozen with 6, actually. That's the problem. When I use the word half a dozen, it will mean the same thing. But because 2024 is a very hot year, because of very, new policies that people have to bear with, the question in the minds of the people is not about drop in rate. My elder brother, Bismarck Rewani, I was listening to him on Channel News a few days ago, and he said transport from Lagos to Ibadan is 3,600 naira. And I have sent my team to go and do research about this, that can you enter a vehicle from Oshodi and get to Ibadan with 3,600? I found out that what we have on paper in terms of rate, consumer price index, is not what the people are looking for. People want to say bread, for example. I am an investor in a supermarket. We produce bread there. The people want to come in there and say, before now, bread is sold for, say, 2,000 naira or 1,900. Now that inflation has dropped by about 10%, can I have this bread come to 1,700? Mm-hmm. The answer is no. It becomes impossible because the supplier of flour has not gotten flour at a reduced price that is going to sell to you. So the butter, the sugar, and every other ingredient that you have has not gone down. Diesel is still there. Now, you now have to consider salaries and wages. Before now, minimum wage happens to be 30,000. Now, government is talking about 70,000. We don't even talk 70,000 in the private sector anymore now, because you know that this take-home cannot take people home. Therefore, generally, people are not interested in our political, economic jargons. I use the word jargons like we have the Latin language we use in law. They are not interested. What they are interested in is how much is bread last year? Yeah. How much is bread now? How much is flight from Lagos to Abuja last year? How much is it now? So that's what people are interested in. Okay. And until government pay attention to the real sector, what is happening out there, we don't deal with rate alone. So I can wake up and say inflationary rate is 10% in Nigeria, and yet bread remains the same price, transport remains the same price. So we need to have this reflected out there.
Okay.
Please go out, do your market survey.
It's quite a lot. Yeah, but,
yeah.
Dr. Ade, it's quite a lot. And some of the issues that you raised the other time, some factors, that affect production. I'd like Professor Rabiu to speak to it. One of the things that a number of people have asked, which Dr. Ade also spoke to, is that government needs to address some of the food supply interventions, some food supply disruptions like security in farming regions, storage infrastructure, ensuring efficient distribution channels, logistic arrangements, and all those things. And a number of people have also spoken to the fact that we depend too much on the federal government, as opposed to also looking at what state governments are doing to buffer the supply side interventions. How do you respond to that, Prof?
That's a good question, and then actually that's a solution to the problem we're having. We can debate this issue of inflation rate, GDP, how does it talk to people's quality of life. So the question is, how can the present government, what can they do to improve on people's quality of life? It's very cool. So we increase salaries and wages across board to 200,000, or can we do better? Exactly. I keep on asking people questions. Japan, for instance, is a high-cost country. I mean, a loaf of bread in Japan is about, last time I was there, it's about 5,000 naira. But the salary is so close to that as well. Is that a society we want? And if so, we maintain the high prices and we increase salaries. Because without high purchasing power, GDP will not grow. The second thing is we look towards a country like Germany, whereby efforts are being put in place to lower. The government at the moment now, like we are saying, let's look at the FG efforts before we come to state. Some states are doing well. Look at Governor Bago of Niger State. Fantastic effort. Just to make sure that, looking at your comparative advantages, Niger State is big country, it's agrarian state, and they go to farming, and they're making fantastic revenue from that as well.
My challenge, Prof, if you forgive me, my challenge here is not whether or not all these initiatives have been done. It's the sustainability of them. The previous conversation, some spoke about the fact that Lagos, for instance, has enjoyed some measure of sustainability that has seen a developmental trajectory over the years. Now, from one state government to the other, and this is what we have experienced down through the years at the federal level, where government after government comes with policy after policy, which gave birth to the so-called policy somersault over time. A good number of economists, such as Dr. Ade has spoken on our program several times, are all speaking to one thing. Until we start producing, until we become a producing and exporting nation, we'll continue to have some of these significant challenges. What are those bottlenecks that need to go, Prof? What are those bottlenecks to our production and export capacity that needs to be adjusted so that we can become a producing nation, earning forex that will hopefully bring these forex exchange rates down to reasonable levels and progressively too? Prof, that's for you. Okay, I think.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Hear me now?
Yes, go ahead.
Oh, fantastic. So, like I was saying, she mentioned transformational leadership. That's a big thing. You see, most of our people have been transactional. We can't keep on doing the same thing again and again. I expect a different result. The model that we are following, economic model, for instance, is really sustainable. You talk about sustainability, yes. So the issue of a transformational leadership must put high premium on disruptive thinking. I use the word, I like the word disruptive thinking, where you think out of the box. And again, at the same time, you have to be very systemic. The FG, the state government and local government have to work with us, and we have to give credit to the present administration. The first president made mention about last year about this one local government, one farm settlement. And if that could be implemented, you could imagine the effect it would be on GDP. Because to grow Nigeria GDP, we have to go to the basics. The effort must start from local government. If you want to eat bread in a day, local government, it must be produced there at least. Let each local government in Nigeria produces what they consume, and it will grow. So how do we do this? So that's one thing. I mean, look, remember 2009, the OLOP, one local government, one product, that was advised by JICA, Japanese aid agency. How far have we gone with that? So so now with the local government autonomy, Nigeria industrialization must be bottom up.
Okay.
But okay, of course, the FG can look at the strategic sectors like the steel industry, petrochemical industry, yes. But then, I mean, our strength is in our farm, in agriculture.
At the end of the day, even the mineral resources and mineral deposits, they are in the various local governments, or even though with layers and layers of regulation and policy over them. Dr. Adeoye, how do you respond to this as we begin to wind down on this conversation? How do we get to the point of being a producing nation sustainably?
I think majorly what we need to emphasize is to walk away from the era of talking, but era of acting. Now you find out that every governor comes to the public, oh, we are focusing on agriculture, we are going to plant 1 million cocoa tree, we are going to do this, we are going to do that during the campaign. Then you now realize that when they get into power, there is no cluster that is put in place for farmers, to anybody who want to invest. So, for example, if what you look, people said, oh, my friend and colleague, we belong to so many groups together, providing economic solution to the government, albeit pro bono. The issue is that the issue of saying we produce what you consume may not be totally achievable because of comparative advantage. For example, I want to eat meat. People in the Northwest, they're very good in rearing cows. So cattle ranch investment should be more there. I need shoes. The Aba people, they are there. Other agricultural materials, tropical environment, they're available in the Southwest. Now, you find out that if not for Federal Inland Revenue Services and the Nigerian Customs Services, most states should have been shut down because they are not even doing anything serious to improve the economy. And you have all sorts of professionals within the civil services of various states that they can use. So we must stop era of just mere talking and let's begin to act. Okay. We must also have a one basket shop where if you are producing to export, you're not going to be meeting retinue of regulatory authorities. Do you know what to face with SON, with NAFDAC, with all sorts of agencies that you cannot. In fact, some will just appear to you suddenly. I recall Ofada rice was exported by a friend of mine that I helped to source in Nigeria here. In fact, it was hell getting this rice from Nigeria to Canada.
It's quite a lot, you know, Dr. Adeoye. It's quite a lot. And it's like we never have enough time, Alero, to look at all of these issues all the time.
That is the nature of live television.
Honestly. Okay, anyway, Dr. Adeoye, you are in the house, and we'll definitely beckon on you another time to be on this particular program, because this sharp drop thing, at least people are a little better informed now. Thank you so much for your time this morning. Dr. Olubenga Adeoye is a chartered accountant and lawyer, as well as Professor Ademola Arabiu, who is a cost engineer. We appreciate you, gentlemen, for being here this morning.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here again.
Okay, so up next, we want to talk about food, but not in the sense you think. We talked about it earlier. See you in a bit.